Imagine opening your banking app tomorrow morning and realizing that a tech that you barely heard of just hijacked 1/7 of the money highway that the world's banks, rely on. Stick around here because what Ripple's CEO just revealed in Singapore could actually rewrite the SWIFT playbook and maybe your XRP game plan too. So I'm sipping an iced Americano yesterday, right? Doom scrolling as one does, when my screen lights up with highlights from the XRPL Apex. Now, Brad Garlinghouse is ever the kind of calm disruptor. He steps on the stage and casually drops the line that the XRP Ledger could gulp down 14% of Swift's global liquidity in 5 years. That was 14%. So it kind of felt like watching someone nonchalantly announce that their kind of garage band will headline Glastonbury, except the garage band already has billion-dollar backing and a CTO named David Schwartz, riffing beside them. Now, before we dive any deeper, let me get the legal gremlins out of the way. Now, this might just shock you, but I am not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies, they are highly volatile, and you could lose all the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. Your investments are entirely your responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses. And today's video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Okay, alright, that's the disclaimer done. The lawyer kind of goblins are back in their caves. Let's roll. So here is why Brad's 14% bombshell had me kind of firing off frantic text messages to every crypto buddy on my list. Now, Swift, it isn't some dusty old fax machine network, right? It's the kind of circuitry kind of system for roughly 11,000 financial institutions moving $150 trillion a year. So you got to picture Swift as the world's oldest group chat then. One that only kind of bankers can join, full of the 1970s emojis, and no one can ever leave at least on the red status, right? And here's the kind of kicker, Swift is mostly just kind of trading paperwork. The actual money, the liquidity, gets shuffled later, sometimes hours or even days later, which is why your overseas wires can feel like waiting for a sloth to finish a marathon. Now, Garlinghouse, he didn't attack the messaging part. He actually just sliced straight to the juicy steak. That's the liquidity. It's not about chatting, he basically said, it's actually about settlement. And XRP, purpose-built for real-time settlement. It handles that kind of better than a kind of plate-spinning street performer who never actually drops a dish. So if Ripple can siphon off 14% of Swift's liquidity, well, we're staring at XRP greasing the wheels of roughly $21 trillion every single year. That would be about $58 billion a day. Now, that's an ocean of cash kind of swishing through ledgers faster than you can say gas fees. Now, I can hear the eye rolls. Bruh, another wild XRP moonshot. And well, that's why the community legends have actually chimed in. So when Brad speaks, he actually means it, right? You can roll back the tapes and yeah, the dude's actually batting a pretty decent average on future proof predictions, and is pretty decent. So remember when Ripple announced ODL corridors, for example, in obscure regions, and everyone kind of just shrugged it off. Then adoption surged faster than meme coins on Elon Musk's midnight tweets, and it's exactly that. So let's kind of smash the common stumbling blocks then, right? Because price assumptions are pretty brutal. Now, some people are going to see $21 trillion and instantly picture cartoon rockets plastered with XRP logos, but price, it isn't as simple as dividing the volume by the supply, because XRP isn't being burned every single transaction. It's actually reused. Now, like those kind of plastic grocery bags that your mum insists on hoarding. You know the ones. Now, according to ChatGPT's math, which naturally I grilled harder than a summer barbecue, If each XRP token circles the globe, roughly about 30 times a year, well, the network would need roughly $700 billion in liquidity parked as XRP to kind of grease those wheels. So divide that by 100 billion tokens and voila, an $11.90 baseline. But wait, the infomercials scream. Factor in speculative zeal, regulatory clarity nibbles, and institutional appetite, and ChatGPT kind of pegged potential upside nearer $17.85, maybe even nudging $23.81 if the FOMO kicks into fourth gear. Now, none of that is financial advice. That is just dry data soaked in the what if sauce. Now, I can almost see the eyebrows doing the push-ups right now. Okay, so where's the real world tension then? What problems does it fix? And I'm glad that you asked, because you got to picture a mid-sized kind of, export business in Vietnam, shipping coffee beans to a cafe chain in Brazil maybe. Now today, that payment hops through correspondent banks across 3 different continents, right? Each taking a nibble, each kind of pausing for compliance checks, and you can almost need a kind of Netflix subscription just to kind of fill the waiting time. Now Ripple's model kind of turns that slog into a near instant settlement party. The coffee arrives, the money settles, and everyone kind of high fives. The banks keep control, the regulators still get oversight, but friction melts away like ice cubes in that Americano of mine. Now, of course, every fairy tale has its fire-breathing dragon. Regulation remains the biggest scaly beast out there. Now, the SEC still circles like a shark in a buffet, and cross-border compliance is a spaghetti bowl of acronyms that would, make alphabet soup jealous. And yeah, Swift isn't exactly twiddling its thumbs either. They've built, or at least have been kind of trial ballooning at 24/7 instant services and flirting with CBDC integrations. So competition is coming from every corner then. JP Morgan's Onyx, Visa's B2B Connect, and those Bitcoin maxis. Just use Lightning, bro. Now, Garlinghouse's 14% goal, it isn't a guaranteed scoreboard either. It's just a kind of bold speedrun challenge, if you will. But here is where the storytelling kind of slaps numbers wide awake. I remember 2013, right? Chasing Bitcoin across shady exchanges, that looked like, GeoCities relics, right? Sending BTC to a friend, it kind of felt like mailing a postcard by carrier pigeon. Cheap, but please arrive sometime before the next lunar eclipse. Now you can fast forward to the XRPL today, right? 4 to 3 second finality in settlements and fees that are barely even on the register. Now that's like upgrading from dial-up modem to a fiber optic internet connection overnight. And if banks, those notoriously risk-adverse beasts, can actually shave operational costs by double digits and offer customers instant money teleportation, well, their boardrooms will listen, even if it means cozying up to crypto that they once side-eyed. So let's sprinkle in some stats because, me, I'm a data nerd. Now, a 2024, study kind of pegged global cross-border payments revenue at around $250 billion, with banks bleeding up to $100 billion annually in trapped capital. So money stuck sitting idle to grease Nostro Vostro accounts. Now, if XRPL, lubricates even a single slice of that, CFOs everywhere will be singing Let It Go louder than a kindergarten Frozen recital. And that's kind of before we even touch remittances. Now, the World Bank said that migrant workers are shipping $860 billion home last year while paying average fees of 6%. Now, you swap those rails for on-demand liquidity powered by XRP, and entire economies actually get a raise. And still, the skeptics howl, but volatility. And it's true, right? Crypto charts sometimes resemble roller coasters drawn by toddlers after Candy Day. Yet, for payment corridors, XRP acts like a hot potato. You hold it for mere seconds. It's not long enough to actually sweat price swings. It's kind of like the functional equivalent of sprinting across a trampoline, right? You're off before gravity really even notices. And that is why Ripple's pitch resonates with liquidity managers. They can plug in, move funds, unplug, and sleep easy. Now, I chatted last night with my buddy Carlos, who manages treasury at a kind of mid-tier Latin American bank. Now, he told me if Ripple's tech can cut our settlement times from kind of 2 days to 2 minutes and slash the Nostro balances by 40%, that's board level excitement. Now, you can multiply that across 1,000 different institutions and you've got a snowball that could nudge that 14% into reality. Not overnight, but click by click. And as adoption inches up, network effects will kick in. Cheaper fees lure more users. More users deepens the liquidity. Deeper liquidity attracts more institutions. It's a positive feedback loop, and it's the financial version of binge watching Netflix at 3 a.m. Now, you might be wondering, why not 50%? Why settle for 14%? And it's because targeting everything kind of invites regulators to kind of whack-a-mole and technological kind of bottlenecks, right? Aiming for a meaningful but manageable slice, it gives Ripple a realistic runway, right? If they nail 14%, that's already revolutionary territory. Besides, history loves incremental disruption. Think early Amazon selling books before gobbling up entire retail sectors, or Netflix mailing DVDs before conquering streaming, right? Start focused, then expand after the system proves itself. So you can cue the narrative climax then, right? An audience member at Apex politely asked David Schwartz how the XRPL handles the scale jump, and Schwartz, half tech envisionalist and half comedian, assures everyone that the ledger already crunches 1,500 transactions per second and can scale elastically, if I can even talk today, through sidechains and hook smart contracts. So he kind of likens it to building extra lanes on a highway in software rather than on concrete. So if demand spikes up, you just spin up more validators, optimize throughput, and voila, the digital asphalt widens without actually pouring a single bucket of tar. So picture a not too distant 2030 morning then, right? Your smartwatch pings you, your salary landed instantly. It converted it from euros to pesos via the XRPL while you slept, right? You tapped twice and you invested part of it into tokenized Tesla shares, right? Settled through the same rails, all before kind of brushing your teeth. That's the end game that Brad is hinting at here. A world where liquidity flows like Wi-Fi. It's invisible, yet essential. So let's kind of steer back to the price chatter for just a second, because I know that's the popcorn section that everyone's actually waiting for. So if XRP's base price calibrates to $11.90 purely on utility, and that's a big if, well, regulators, they might roll out the green carpet. Speculative kind of froth could frolic to the top, but remember, prices overshoot and undershoot like caffeinated ping pong balls. So the real value lies in durable demand then. And that is why I'm more intrigued by the liquidity metrics than candle charts right now. When daily on-chain volume rivals national GDPs, that's staying power that you just can't meme away. Okay, so here's a quick pit stop. If you want ongoing breakdowns, swing by our free educational Discord. There's a link in the description. Now, we nerd out on everything from on-chain data to meme coin autopsies, right? And yes, it's genuinely free. We have the free areas and we have membership areas. So come join us in the free general area. It's free. Right? And hey, special shout out as well to the crypto exchange Blowfin for supporting the channel here. Now, if you use my Blowfin affiliate link that's in the description, it helps fund my caffeine addiction and these deep dive videos. So the affiliate link, full description, it costs you $0, but every trade that you do, we get a small cut of the trading fee. Okay, let's get back to the saga, right? The critics are going to argue that bank adoption will move at snail tempo because legacy IT systems make kind of blockbuster, the bankrupt company, look cutting edge right now. Yet Swift itself, it actually rolled out GPI in just a few years once member banks saw customer churn looming. So the thing we have to remember here is that money talks louder than what some of these skeptics are talking about. And when you have stablecoins, CBDCs, and tokenized treasuries lighting competitive fires, well, banks, they risk losing, their users if they ignore faster, cheaper rails. So Garlinghouse basically kind of flashed a 5-year stopwatch on the stage. Any institution hitting snooze may find customers migrating to fintech apps that settle in seconds. Now, one more thing that I do adore here is the subtle kind of PR judo that Ripple just pulled off. By framing the challenge around liquidity and not the messaging, they actually dodged the head-to-head kind of slugfest against Swift's entrenched network. They're not saying ditch Swift. They're saying let us supercharge the parts that Swift can't. It's kind of like Tesla partnering with Shell to install chargers at gas stations. You leverage the existing footprints but upgrade the experience. Okay, let's zoom out. The whole asset classes are actually creeping on chain, right? We talk about real estate, carbon credits, heck, even Rihanna's royalties. Now, all of those tokenized goodies will need neutral, fast, cross-chain highways, right? The XRPL's built-in DEX, one-to-one issued assets, and forthcoming EVM sidechains could position it as the kind of empty 6-lane freeway while other chains struggle with toll booths and potholes. Now, if Ripple nails compliance and liquidity simultaneously, they're not just capturing 14% of bank liquidity. They're actually cornering a fat chunk of the tokenized everything economy. So is there risk? Absolutely, right? Technical snuffles, governance disputes, hostile regulators, take your pick, right? Remember, when EOS, it raised billions of dollars, and then crickets. Right? Or when Meta's Libra got KO'd by lawmakers before the launch, right? Vision alone is not victory. Execution is king, cool, and the kingdom, right? And Garlinghouse's track record, paired with Swartz's engineering chops, well, it kind of makes me hedge less on vaporware and more on the kind of they might just pull this off kind of angle. So let's land the plane, right? If you're holding XRP, today is kind of $2 something price. It might feel like you're waiting on hold for customer services. It's long, it's repetitive, and it's just hope testing, right? But utility adoption, it tends to creep, then sprint. Now, the moment the liquidity locks in, prices can lurch like kind of startled kangaroos. And if you're a skeptic, fair enough, right? You can file this under monitor closely. And because even a kind of partial win for Ripple could ripple, pun absolutely intended, across the entire digital asset landscape.